What's going on, Seaville? I'm your host, Lana Young. We have Robbi Savage and Jack Brown from the Rivanna Conservation Society here tonight to tell us what they're doing to protect Mr. Jefferson's River and how they're earning the title of the Voice of the Rivanna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We have Robbi Savage, you are the executive director, and we have Jack Brown, and I think that it's the RCS mouthpiece, but that's not your official title. You're the Advocacy, Media, and Outreach Coordinator, and you're also past chair, correct?
Correct.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So we have the Rivanna River,
Yes, we do.
also known as Mr. Jefferson's River, because he grew up on it, correct? And he also, of course, went ahead and built Monticello on its banks. Why then was it only until 1990 that this society was formed? What was the immediate need that was identified? What took so long?
What took so long? Well, there were 4 gentlemen who were in Fluvanna. They were paddling and talking and looking at the growth that was taking place along the river. And the concern was that if the river didn't have a mouthpiece or a voice, that growth would be unabated, and that it was time for citizens and members of the public to start paying attention and to speak on behalf of this beautiful waterway.
And that's what you are, the voice of the Rivanna, correct?
Yep, that's us.
You protect it.
Yes.
You have amazing projects, which one of my favorites is the Rivanna River Guardians. So we actually have a Lighthouse mini documentary about the Guardians. So let's take a look at that. Take a look.
My name is Robbi Savage. I'm the Executive Director of the Rivanna Conservation Society. RCS was created in 1990 to be the eyes and the ears and the voice of the Rivanna River. And in doing that, we are initiating a new program called our Rivanna River Guardians. And our guardians are people throughout the community that are willing to give of their time and their talent and their energy to adopt a part of the river and to make it their own. Now, what does that mean? It means that they're willing to walk the river, clean up trash, monitor for bacteria and chemical parameters, as well as identify either problems in the river if they see something, pollution coming from a particular source, or if they see something great, like a bald eagle. So they'll share that throughout the network of guardians. So we're here today to train and to involve the network with one another so that we can collaborate as a team and to work together to care for this beautiful river that we call the Rivanna.
Today we're doing some water quality monitoring. So the issue is we need to look and see what exactly is the water quality that we're on. So there's several different types of monitoring that we're doing. There's a chemical monitoring, so we have these test kits, and that's what we're doing the training on today, to be able to find out the dissolved oxygen, the turbidity, how clear the water is, and the pH level. They're also doing another type of testing, which is a bacterial level, to see if the water is really safe to swim in, which is the bottom line for that.
Oh, we've pulled all kinds of things out of the river. We pulled cars, motorcycles, batteries, refrigerators, appliances. I mean, a lot of people used to, sadly, use the river and the streams and the neighborhood creeks as dumping grounds. I've definitely seen the impact that just getting out there and picking up the trash makes year by year.
My name is Justin Delane. This is my daughter Chloe Delane. Say hi.
Hi.
And Chloe and I, along with her brother and sister, have been paddling the Rivanna River in Fluvanna County for since she's been a year old, so she's 3 now. But we love paddling the river, and it's a big part of our lives. And also spend a lot of time on the river, on the weekends, and it's a good recreational piece for us. We definitely enjoy it.
My name is Will Murdoch, and I'm here to help with bacteria testing. It is home for fish and water plants. If the water has lots of life in it, that's a signal to the water really is good.
What we do in in Charlottesville affects the water quality in Fluvanna. What happens in Greene affects how the river is in Charlottesville, and every little stream affects the big ones. What we do in the Rivanna affects the bay, affects the ocean. It's been said many times before, but we're all connected, and we need to think that way and act that way.
I love that the kids are involved in that. Seeing the kids on that video, I think that that's so important that it becomes part of your life, and so by the time you're an adult and you can actually do something about it, it's not a second thought. How's the project doing?
It's doing very well. One of the reasons why we want to draw kids in is in part to give them a kind of lifelong habit of environmental awareness, make them see the natural world surrounds them, and encourage them to care about it. So that was an idea of the early founders, was it's not enough to work on the river today, you need to build a long-term constituency for it. So,
That's great. And you just said to care about it. Why should we care?
well, so the river, we see the river in the headlines occasionally when there's threats of various kinds, and certainly RCS focuses on the threats. And we clean the river up, we try to get stormwater ordinances passed and things like that. But it's also worth emphasizing what a great, marvelous resource it is that flows right through our communities. So this isn't like the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland that caught fire twice. This is a lovely, lovely stretch of great natural beauty that is central to hundreds of species, and a marvelous spot for all of us to go observe nature, to get various kinds of recreation, to be outside, and really to get away from the hustle of our normal lives and get a fresh perspective on who we are and where we are. So that's another key part of what RCS tries to do, is to encourage folks in a whole bunch of recreational ways to be on the river and appreciating it for what it is and what it can be.
Well, you know, there was a gentleman in the video that talked about paddling with his family, and that is part of their lifestyle. And I know that you also have a paddling program as well. Can you talk a little more on that?
Yes, we have the Rivanna River Sojourn that we do in the spring around the Earth Day celebration. And we take seasoned paddlers, those that are very proficient, and we also take novices, and we partner with Blue Ridge Mountain Sports, and they provide the boats and they provide the safety and the instructions for the newbies, and they paddle with us, and it's just a wonderful experience to get people not only onto the water, but to see the wildlife and the birds, and to see the erosion and sedimentation as well. Some of the stream banks have been channelized. The sediment takes, the sand and moves it down towards the James River and ultimately into the Chesapeake Bay. So we want people to have fun. We want them to enjoy the river, but we also want to build a sense of stewardship and ownership of this river, which is one of the reasons we created the Guardians program. And we're delighted that parents, there are several dads that with their sons have become guardians and have taken the training and are going to adopt a certain part of the river as their own. So
what a wonderful bonding
we're very
experience.
excited.
So bonding. So while they're taking the paddling trips, are they being guided with a lecture, or to point out, are certain things pointed out? Is it an educational
Absolutely.
journey?
Absolutely. So we have ornithologists, we have biologists, we have aquatic specialists, we have historians, yes, indeed, and then we have folks that just know the river. There are a lot of cultural aspects of the river as well. So there's a lot of history and locks and sleuths and whatnot that you wouldn't know about if you didn't paddle right down the Rivanna.
Just your own opinion. Where do you think it went all wrong? When did we stop caring about that? Or was it just because we didn't know that we could ruin the water so easily?
I wouldn't, and I'll ask Jack to amplify on this, but I wouldn't say we went wrong. If you look at the history of our country and most countries around the world, communities were established on the waterways. And the initial mentality was, it's the transportation, we grow crops using this water, it's our cooking, it's our bathing, and it's our toilet. So it has always been used as the conveyance for waste. And I think over time, we've learned that that is inappropriate. We've learned that wastewater treatment is important for human health, to keep the bacteria out of the waterways, that we need a clean river for drinking water, for bathing, for health, and for recreation. So I think it was the early mentality of human beings to settle by the water and use it for all of these purposes.
So it was necessity.
Yes. But as Jack said, when the Cuyahoga went aflame in the early 70s, and Earth Day and awareness, that's when the Congress took up the Clean Water Act of 1972, and it was our first major national framework for how to protect our waters and the waters of the United States.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that because I'm jumping ahead, but I was gonna talk about the brown bag lecture series, which we can go back to, but you actually did a presentation on the Clean Water Act.
Yes.
And in your presentation, you talked about Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring in 1962, right? Do you draw a parallel to that? Do you think that she may have been the catalyst to making people aware of dirtying water? Or
well, her focus was primarily pesticides and the effect that they have on the waterways. And most of the states, if not all the states, had clean water programs back in the 40s. So the impetus for getting national attention and national statute came in the late 60s, early 70s, when both the House and Senate started focusing on the need for a national statute.
Right, and then the Clean Water Act in 1972, correct?
Right, in October of 72.
So,
and then again in 77, and then again in 81, and then 87, which is the last reauthorization of the Clean Water Act that we've had.
You can see Robbi's been fighting some of these battles for us all for a long time.
Thank you, Robbi.
Yeah.
Well, you're starting to see some benefits, though, aren't we, with water?
We are.
Oh, yeah.
We are. There's no question about it, we are. And in this community on the Rivanna, we've seen some real important local wins with stormwater codes that are trying to keep all this runoff that comes off of parking lots and takes all this motor oil that's leaked out of cars. Without the codes, all of that ends up going directly into the river and makes a bad situation worse. So that's one area. Charlottesville has this new stormwater utility ordinance that will also help a lot. So there are real success stories, but on the other hand, getting back to your question of when did it all go wrong, it's very clear that the pressure of development, and really by that I mean detached single-family homes just spreading out all over the landscape, that pressure has really been very, very tough on the Rivanna in particular and on the whole Chesapeake Bay watershed, with terrible results for much larger ecosystems than just what flows past our town. So in one sense, the battle doesn't ever end. It's worth emphasizing, though, that this isn't, being a good environmentalist does not necessarily equate to being anti-development. It really comes down to being smart about how we use our resources.
Right.
And RCS, working with a lot of partners, especially in local government, has tried to emphasize the ways in which we can be smart with resources and do better for the environment while also advancing what are real human needs.
As we move forward.
Yeah.
So does that mean working with engineers and architects and city planners and all of that? Like, can you sort of stop it before it even happens with just creative planning?
Sure, in some ways. So one of the great changes that's happened in civil engineering over the last 25 years, civil engineers used to try to get stormwater off of their land, off of whatever project they were working on. They wanted the water gone as fast as they could. And in the last 25 years, the whole profession of civil engineers has realized, no, we need to take an approach quite the reverse and try and slow the flow of stormwater off of lands, filter it naturally in various kinds of bioretention ponds, and ease the burden on local streams and storm sewers. And so that's just one way where now, if you look around us, in even big development projects we see around town these days, that kind of different approach, that ameliorative approach with stormwater runoff has been really crucial.
Well, you just mentioned sewer. So what is your connection to the Rivanna Sewer and Water Treatment Facility?
Well,
Do you have a
wastewater treatment is essential, because when we flush our toilets, when we turn on the sinks, when we take a shower, when we do our laundry, all of that water goes from our homes, and most of us don't know where it goes. And where it goes is down the piping system, transported to the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority. And then they have to clean it up. So it's expensive. Wastewater treatment facilities are costly to build, multi-million-dollar facilities. They're expensive to maintain. Pipes get old and they disintegrate. New technologies are imposed from the federal government. So it's an ongoing issue. As Jack said, we're never going to get clean water and keep it, because we use it.
Right.
And we encourage people to use particularly our river for their recreation. At the same time, as I said, the sense of personal responsibility of knowing where our waste goes, what's involved in keeping it clean, and what the impact of not cleaning it is on our river, on our health, and downstream. We are the upstream neighbors. So all of our pollution gets sent downstream to Richmond, and then to Williamsburg, and down into the Chesapeake Bay. So I think we have a special responsibility in our community to be the best environmental neighbors we can be.
Well, thank goodness for you guys, because I think it's so easy to just sit and not think about that even happening.
Sure.
You know, you kind of take it for granted. You just said all the spill off from parking lots and,
Right.
you know, farming and, you know, sewers and everything. I mean, who's taking care of that?
Well, often we think, and we talk about this at RCS a lot, it's easy to just think that it's up to the government.
Right.
You know, we pay our water bill, we pay our sewer bill, and let somebody else deal with it. Let them be responsible. So that's one of the reasons that we like to engage the young people in saying, no, this isn't just for somebody else to do. This is our job. This is our responsibility. This is our water and our river.
If you're teaching people that it directly affects them and that they can make a difference, which I think you do very well with your brown bag lecture series, right? That's the third Thursday.
Third Thursday.
Can we just talk about that for a minute? Because I
Sure.
think that you have the opportunity through that to educate people. And busy, you know, people who are busy, you guys run on a lot of volunteers, right? And I think the biggest comment is, oh, well, I'm too busy to help. But you can actually bring a lunch to this 1
Yes.
hour lecture and learn something and maybe find out. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Why don't you address that?
Well, our speakers cover the map, but the goal in the Brown Bag series is to bring engaging speakers into people's normal work week so that they can learn about the river. And speakers have included folks talking about direct river issues, so things like the stormwater ordinance, for example, but also stepping a bit away from that. So we have speakers who talk about new road construction in the area and what kind of effect that has on the natural environment. We've had speakers who will address development issues broadly, give some history. We've had a great speaker who was talking about the various ways in which we can act on our own homes, in our own yards, with things like rain barrels to collect water off of our downspouts so that we use water that would otherwise be run off into storm sewers. We get to use it and improve the vitality of plants growing right on your own property.
And we sell the rain barrels too, by the way.
By the way,
And we do sell rain barrels, and people who buy an RCS rain barrel get a rebate from the city or the county because when they're buying a rain barrel, they are directly they're directly limiting how much of a burden in stormwater the local infrastructure has to manage. So city government and county government have stepped up in these ways. So they're partners in all this. I mean, sometimes RCS, we find we want to throw some light on a problem, but it's worth emphasizing how often we work collaboratively with government. And we're very, very fortunate in this community that we have enough people who understand that we've got to come up with collective solutions to problems. The world is not like the 18th century where we can just all do our own thing. Much as many of us would like to think that, and much of that is a deep-seated ideal in America, but the reality these days is that what you do in your part of the world will have a real effect on the lives of others. And we're fortunate to have local government that realizes that and tries to act on that basis, and we try to be a good partner with them.
Including the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority. And we did a series through our Rivanna Makeover during the month of October. We did tours of the sewer plant for local area schools, homeschoolers, garden clubs, and it was great to partner with them. And they seem to enjoy having people come and visit the sewer plant because it's usually not the first thing in your event planning.
Let's go to the sewage plant.
But you know, anybody who wants to come, just give us a call because we love to partner with them and again, to share what's involved in getting and keeping clean water.
This stuff gets pumped up here from our collection system. This is the highest point at the plant. We're going to flow downhill from here for the most part. And what we're doing is we're screening out Bic lighters, condoms, feminine products with these screens, and then they come to these, they're called macerators. They get chopped up into tiny little bits and come off that conveyor into this dumpster. Back in the day, they used to just drain these things. They're about 20 feet deep at the deepest point and let the sludge sit there, and that sludge down there is just awful. So these are the primary clarifiers. What's going on here is what comes out of the equalization basins. Raw comes in the center, and as it makes its way out here, the big stuff settles out. There's an arm moving around very slowly. The one on the surface is skimming the grease off. There's another one on the bottom that's bringing the sludge in towards the center to our pump. And that's what goes to the anaerobic digesters on the bottom. And this top stuff goes to the grease pit. So these, we have 5 basins here. They're rectangular and they go in that direction. And what's going on, this is our anaerobic zone. And we're not providing any oxygen here. This is where the bacteria are releasing their phosphorus and they're picking up energy at the same time. So this is where they're taking the nitrate and the NO3 and they're releasing nitrogen gas. A secondary clarifier is just like a primary clarifier. It's just we're trying to get the bacteria back in our secondaries because they're secondary to the biological activity. And what goes on here is you can see there's a line that goes along the bottom, and this is a special unit because what this one does is kind of like a vacuum cleaner. That arm rotates around very, very slowly, vacuuming up the sludge. And on the top end, there is a rubber squeegee that runs across the whole length of the clarifier. And when this trough goes underneath that squeegee, it just pushes everything on the surface into the trough. But that brown stuff in the aeration basins, it's called mixed liquor. So that comes directly into the center, and as it flows towards this outer edge, most of it has settled out though. You can see the light on. What happens is the water's flowing through this channel, and these are just long light bulbs, like fluorescent bulbs in your office, they have a very specific spacing, and what the light's doing is it's rearranging the DNA of any pathogens that are present, anything else that's in there too. And this is a smart system. It uses a ton of power, so it senses how clean or dirty the water is, and it automatically varies the intensity of the bulbs, just so that we don't end up spending a lot of money on extra power here if we have really clean water, which we typically do. And this is the end product. We've made as much methane gas as possible, and this is what's left over. This is going to get spun around really fast in our centrifuge, and that's going to be headed for compost. This is our centrifuge, or our solids handling building. Fairly smelly stuff. You can smell some of the ammonia in there. But what it is it's, you know, that brown goo we saw coming out of the anaerobic digesters, it's that with the water removed. The centrifuge is upstairs, and it comes down this conveyor, loaded into these trucks. Thank you guys for coming. And, you know, tell everybody, yeah, we stink, but we're cool too, right? Yeah.
Let's do it again.
How many sewers have you visited?
Oh, I've visited sewers all over the world. The most interesting was not only our Washington, D.C. Blue Plains, but Tokyo. It's all underground. And because of the small space in Japan, they have recreation activities above the sewer plant, and they use the gray water as maintenance water in the office building that's around. So I've seen
So
probably
very
thousands of
sophisticated.
sewer plants.
Sewer connoisseur. I like that. I like that. Well, we're coming to a close. I like to end on a happy note. If you have an anecdote or a happy story, happy ending that you'd like to share with us, or if you'd like to leave our viewers with a special message, please feel free.
Well, just what I'll add in that connection, I try to be on the river in some way every week. And in the last 2 weeks, I have seen 3 nesting pairs of great blue herons and countless turtles and deer and the occasional beaver who gets mad when I get too close. So that kind of bounteous nature is right there for us to see and appreciate and hopefully safeguard.
That's wonderful. So just go out and enjoy it.
Yep.
And we'll have your website coming across the screen right here so that everybody can come and visit you. The website is wonderful. It's very comprehensive. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
It's really spectacular. I've learned a lot, and I hope the viewers have learned a lot. And I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
Jack.
Appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in again for another episode of What's Going on Seaville. And Lighthouse would like to thank you for supporting kids making television. See you next time.
There's a big white ghost in your brain. It's always on time, it's always the same, but after 35 seconds it's the same. It turns over, turns over, turns over, turns over, turns. He's Gotham is the city for the saints. I'll attend the service from my cover for the service, but lastly she knows that it's the same. And she knows that she knows that she knows that